Justices of the Supreme Court of the Philippines. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having business before the Honorable Supreme Court of the Philippines shall give their attention, for the Court is now in session.
Please remain standing for the doxology, the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, and the Supreme Court hymn.
Magiliw, pero sa silanganan, hanap ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisingil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mga may dilag kang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdinig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may dinagdidilig. Lupa ng araw na ating pagsinta, muli namin sabihin mo. Aming ligaya ng may mga ang namatay ng dahil sa'yo. Behold the darkness is writ, all their judgments flow. With conscience free their views to air, they vow and this to all declare. Rich or poor, friend or foe, alike, the scales ever balance strike. Justice and equity for law, truth and fairness reign their hall. There stands the court of last resort, forever Supreme Court. With vision set on history, their vision leaves a legacy. For their honor, their faith, their names, the nation will all acclaim. Justice and equity for law, truth and fairness reign their hall. There stands the court of last resort, forever Supreme Court. With vision set on history, their mission leaves a legacy. For their honor, their faith, their names, the nation will all acclaim. For their honor, their faith, their names, the nation will all acclaim.
You may now be seated.
Attorney Richeta, call the matter at hand.
Your Honors, good afternoon. Called for this afternoon's special session of the Court in Bank is the ceremonial program to mark the retirement from the Court of the Honorable Lucas P. Bersamin, Chief Justice of the Philippines. Serving as Master of Ceremonies is the Honorable Associate Justice Marvic Mario Victor F. Leonen.
With your leave, Your Honors, may I ask the Chief Justice to descend from the high bench and take his place of honor. Also, with your leave, Your Honors, and by application of our rules of precedence, may I ask that the Honorable Senior Associate Justice Antonio T. Carpio take the helm of this court while we honor the Chief Justice. Thank you, Your Honors. May it please the court. Today, we mark a milestone, not merely in the career of the Honorable Chief Justice Lucas P. Bersamin, but also a milestone in the history of the court. The retirement of a Chief Justice is not an ordinary affair. By tradition, the eras of Supreme Court are referred with the names of its primus inter pares. In just a few days, we will complete the era of the Bersamin Court. Today's ceremonies is symbolic in that we can all acknowledge with gratitude and reflect on the descent of the Chief Justice from the high bench onto the hallowed grounds that many of the colleagues who came before us now occupy. The Chief Justice will not probably recall that I was there at the back of the dignitaries' lounge as the Dean of the UP College of Law when he took his first oath as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. In my close to 7 years as a member of the High Bench, I have had the honor of being received by him in his chambers many times to discuss possible compromises on points of law, to touch base after I register my dissents to some of his ponencias, and even to find ways to mend controversial issues that hounded our institution. I have witnessed him take the lead, and from the mirror of my own experience, I can confidently say that he took on the dignity and stern responsibility of his office, like a Cordillera Pangat, the elder who holds a bodong or peace pact that protected his tribe in its relations with all other tribes. He was like the Cordillera Mansasakusa, the skilled negotiator who risks his own life to find an end to a brewing misunderstanding that could lead to fatal tribal wars. He displayed wisdom similar to the Kafagway or the Meadows, quiet, seemingly yielding, yet precise in his ability to take solid roots to guide us all forward. The first justice from the Cordilleras is a warrior, courageous to the extent that he entrusted the control of the last ceremony that will honor him to that person who disagreed with him the most. My dissents and the passion in them are nothing without his ponencias. Likewise, the deliberate, conscious, and painstaking arguments that he put in many of his ponencias, urging the majority, are also nothing without our dissents. The respect earned by a leader will never become real without that leader's own respect for those who do not agree with him. That I stand here before you with the task I was given is a measure of how far this court has recovered its principled collegiality. For that, in this ceremony, I register my full concurring opinion, not only one in the result. Your honors, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the retirement ceremony of Chief Justice Lucas P. Bersamin. With the assistance of my esteemed colleagues, we will now proceed to the presentation of tokens to our honoree. The first token is the Supreme Court flag, dominated by the color purple, symbolizes the nobility and intellect of the people who are tasked with rendering justice without regard to gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, race, or religion. It is the visual representation that unifies us to dutifully serve this significant institution and a beautiful reminder of the Supreme Court's sacred responsibility to uphold the Constitution, serve justice, and protect rights and liberties without partiality or favor. It bears the color purple, a representation of wisdom, dignity, and independence. Embodying the virtues our flag represents, our honoree has conscientiously served the judiciary with fidelity to his duties and commitment to justice, upholding the Constitution and rule of law with independence, wisdom, dignity, and faithful service. He has dispensed justice based on legal principles rather than on personal prejudice. He was never rash to judge and did not crave popularity for its own sake through his decisions. He scrutinizes every factual detail and the pieces of evidence before arriving at a conclusion. To present the Supreme Court flag to our honoree, I call on the newest member of this court, a connoisseur of culture, a quiet but consistent worker who has extensively served in the judiciary with perseverance, dedication, and excellence in the name of public service. Honorable Mr. Justice Rodil V. Salameda, kindly bestow the Supreme Court flag on our honoree. Thank you, Justice Rodil. The next token is the Philippine flag. The Philippine flag is the symbol of our nation's sovereignty and independence. It embodies the national ideals and traditions and expresses the principles of sovereignty and national solidarity. Much like the Philippine flag, Chief Justice Bersamin's long and loyal service for 33 years as a magistrate manifests his commitment to the ideal of justice. In all his decisions, Chief Justice Bersamin always strives to make his writings understandable to the ordinary folk as his way of contributing to public opinion and awareness. His desire to make justice accessible to the underserved and marginalized sectors has been truly reflected when, upon the assumption of the office of Chief Justice in November of last year, he identified as one of his 4-point priorities the establishment of legal clinics all over the country. This came into fruition upon the revision of the Law Student Practice Rule on June 25, 2019. With this, I call on a justice who embodies what it means to advocate for those who live in the periphery. He is the first justice that studied law at the Ateneo de Davao and traces his roots all the way to Bohol. He pays attention to the details in all his cases. Mr. Justice Henry Jean-Paul B. Inting, kindly present the Philippine flag to our honoree. Thank you, Justice Henry. The next token is the Supreme Court pin. The Supreme Court pin, though small, bears the seal of our honored institution. Just as the seal is displayed to remind its bearer of the work done in service to the country, the pin is worn to distinguish its wearer as a member of a special group mandated to uphold the rule of law. This pin is meant to be worn proudly on one's chest as a reminder that through one's time in service, through the court may be over, the wearer keeps the court's principles and mandate as close to his heart as possible. The seal of the Supreme Court is accented with a diamond, symbolizing the significance of the hard work exerted by Chief Justice Bersamin. To present the Supreme Court pin to our honoree is another one of my colleagues whose years in the public service are marked by her unyielding passion and principled advocacy, especially for gender and women's rights. She is the product of the only pontifical university, yet open to discern contemporary needs in order to deliver justice. May I call on the amiable and gracious Justice Beauty, Madam Justice Amici Lazaro Javier. Thank you, Justice Ami. The next token is the Supreme Court's timepiece. The Supreme Court timepiece, masterfully crafted by a Filipino artisan, symbolizes the skill, precision, and countless years of service rendered by Chief Justice Bersamin in fulfillment of his judicial functions. It serves as a constant reminder of the legacy that he will leave behind. Despite having sat as Chief Justice for less than a year, several projects and judicial reforms had been initiated, and some completed under his watch. Significantly, under his leadership, the court has approved several procedural reforms, such as the 2019 revised rule on children in conflict with the law, the revised law student practice rule, the rules of procedure for admiralty cases, and recently, the revised rule on evidence. In just a short period of time, the Chief Justice has initiated reforms in legal education by setting the direction for the 2019 Legal Education Summit. He also saw to it that infrastructures were in place for first and second level and set the pace for the establishment of a regional center in the new Clark City, Interlock. By giving the best years of his life to public service, Chief Justice Lucas P. Bersamin has made an indelible mark in the legal history of the Philippines. To present the Supreme Court timepiece is a justice who, like the honoree, is also a bar top-notcher. She is on track to stand as one of the judiciary's lasting luminaries, as proven by her 3 decades of sitting on the bench. She is salutatorian of her graduating class, second only to Senior Associate Justice Antonio T. Carpio. She finds her roots from the Southern Tagalog region. May I thus call on her honor, Madam Justice Rosemary Carandang, to present the Supreme Court timepiece to the Chief Justice. Thank you, Justice Rory. The next token is the Supreme Court seal. It was once the practice to stamp a seal onto a document as an assurance that the document came from the person who claimed to have issued it. Seals were also affixed on correspondence to assure the addressee that the communication had not been opened without his or her authority. Thus, an unbroken seal was a guarantee that the message came from the sender and that its confidentiality was not breached. The Supreme Court seal is special to all those who have served this court. It bears symbols of our fealty to the rule of law and to our nation. It adopted the coat of arms of the Republic, which in turn contains the symbols of our flag. On the coat of arms are the scales of justice, embodying the principles of justice, fairness, and equity. The court's motto, Batas at Bayan, is inscribed on a scroll beneath the coat of arms. A garland of laurel leaves surround it as a sign of triumph over lawlessness. This replica of the Supreme Court seal, crafted by hand and finished with oil-based paint, is a special gift for retiring members of the court. It retells memories from the inner sanctum of the court, behind closed doors of the en-banc session halls, which members are forbidden to disclose under a vow of secrecy. It is a fitting gift for a magistrate, such as the Chief Justice, he who has endeavored to protect the court against misbehavior and illicit activities which may erode the public's faith and trust in the court. His desire to cleanse the judiciary has truly been notable that he gave specific instructions to the Office of the Court Administrator to start with his home province of Abra, lending the impression that he would not favor any personality regardless of affiliation. To present the Supreme Court seal, I will call upon a colleague and a friend. Already his ponentias in controversial cases display his wisdom. In Maynilad, Water Services versus DNR, and its companion cases, now in the newspapers. He led a unanimous court which evolved the Regalian Doctrine into the Public Trust Doctrine. Just this week, in fact, just yesterday, he penned an important case which allows deposition upon written interrogation for Mary Jane Veloso, currently detained in Indonesia. It is in this case that he ably clarified the effects of our rules on transboundary cases. He is now the youngest justice among us, but is certainly not its handsomest. He is passionate about the Bill of Rights, a careful and consummate jurist, respectful of the opinion of others. I call on His Honor, Justice Ramon Paul L. Hernando, to give the seal to our honoree. Thank you, Justice Mon. The next token is the photo album. Indeed, Chief Justice Bersamin's long and storied career has created a plethora of memories, many of which are remembered in this photo album. The photos here capture moments of a life well lived. It is a simple reminder of how the judiciary has been changed with its valuable presence and contributions, which he and his loved ones may look back upon with fondness and happiness. Again, I call on Justice Hernando, who has, since his childhood, already also painted a picture of fulfilled life, serving justice, to present the photo album to our honoree. Thank you, Justice Mon. The next token is the Book of Decisions. The Book of Decisions showcases the ponencias written by Chief Justice Bersamin, which have contributed to the wealth of jurisprudence in this country. The book contains vital snapshots of his judicial philosophy throughout his decade-long tenure in the Supreme Court. It is in this book that we see his pioneering work as a champion of the writ of amparo, as well as his ceaseless and untiring writings on the foundational areas of law, such as procedural law and criminal law. It is also in this book that we find his landmark unanimous ponencia involving the disbursement allocation program, which Chief Justice Renato S. Puno has described as a rarity because its legal issues demand an intellect finely honed in constitutionalism, while its non-legal issues, the political and economic, require a multi-minded brain. The Araujo ruling of Chief Justice Bersamin, according to Chief Justice Renato Puno, is a major contribution to constitutionalism, as it acknowledged the sacrosanct principles of triadic separation of powers. In his ponencia, the Chief Justice upheld the executive power to execute the laws of the land while guarding the power of the purse to Congress and protecting the independence of constitutional commissions. In this book, we find the Chief's humility and commitment to collegiality in the court, as in many contentious matters where it is evident that each justice's view was properly heard. Reflected in these pages is the hard work and commitment to doing justice that is the exemplar of the character of our honoree. For this, I call on a member of the court who has trodden long years of public service, equipped with perseverance and legal wisdom, as seen in his many achievements. The presenter of this token is a leader in his own right. He is considerate of all his colleagues, careful in the ways he communicates his studied opinions. The taskmaster of the Legal Education Summit and the revised rules on clinical legal education, a person who does not tire in his attempts to convert me into Christianity. May I now call Mr. Justice Alexander Hesmundo to present the Book of Decisions to our honoree. And now, as an intermission, I had volunteered to sing, but
You don't have a guitar.
they annulled that proposal. Let us welcome back Ms. Sarah Faye Bacal to give a beautiful performance.
Unforgettable,
Thank you, Sarah, for turning today's event even brighter with that wonderful performance. We now move on to the presentation of tokens, and this one is particularly special. The next token is the Supreme Court pen. Indeed, in a democracy, magistrates wield no other weapon mightier than the pen. In one stroke, their pen can shift perspectives, broaden scholastic thought, and even transform the day-to-day lives of ordinary citizens. When wielded properly, the pen becomes the instrument of justice, bringing succor to the oppressed and punishing the wicked. When wielded masterfully, it becomes the instrument of revolution, the tool that can change the fate of a nation. Each curve and line produced by the stroke of the pen is similar to the wisdom, hard work, and consciousness he applies in all the decisions that the honoree has written. His analytical and incisive thinking has manifested in his ponencias, in Araulio, in Mandanas. In recognition of his astute writings and of the many hours of toil spent in piecing together a decision or opinion, this court awards a pen to our honoree. To present the Supreme Court pen is another colleague who, like our honoree, has risen through the ranks, having penned decisions on important issues in appellate courts. The justice who will present this token redefines the concept of generous. He is charitable almost to a fault, considerate of all his colleagues. He penned the seminal case on the right to travel in Delima and is ever so conscious of finishing all his cases within the short term that he has in the Supreme Court. I call on the ever so generous and hardworking career magistrate, His Honor Justice Andres B. Reyes Jr., to present the Supreme Court pen. Thank you, Justice Andy. The next token is the brass shingle. A name is more than just a marker of identity. Ultimately, it also signifies the sum of a person's life work and the legacy he or she leaves behind. Chief Justice Bersamin's legacy in the judiciary started with his work as judge of the Regional Trial Court of Quezon City. From there, he rose through the ranks by his hard work and perseverance, serving as Justice of the Court of Appeals and ultimately reaching the highest court of the land. Now, as Chief Justice of this very court, the honoree knows the value of a good name and the many great sacrifices necessary to attain and keep a name worthy of the legacy left behind. The brass shingle, with his name etched on it, is presented to Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin as a tribute to the name he has established inside and outside the court. Plated in fine brass, it is meant to approximate not only the prestige attached to the office of the chief, but also the high degree of professionalism that he has exemplified throughout his years of dedicated public service. It shall be a constant reminder to the Chief Justice that his name and his legacy will not be forgotten when he leaves the judiciary. His unassuming personality has endeared him to the people that he had met and worked with. More than the reforms he introduced as chief, he will be leaving an indelible mark as he had been instrumental in healing the judiciary from the previous controversies that hounded it. To present this token is a colleague whose steadfast commitment to his sworn duty, like our honoree, is simply admirable. Creative and conscientious, a scholar both of text and of life, fervent in his desire for social justice and his faith, a civilist who in due time will achieve more than his late father. May I call on Mr. Justice Alfredo Benjamin Caguiwa, my colleague and good friend, to present the brass shingle. The next token is the Supreme Court ring. The ring traditionally symbolizes three things: fidelity, continuity, and eternity. As a representation of the perfect set circle, it is also an emblem of integrity and wholeness. The chief's 33 years of service to the judiciary is a testament to his unwavering commitment to the administration of justice and to his passion for the works of the court. To those he met along his journey, he has dealt with goodness, honor, and respect. Justice Kagiwa will likewise present the Supreme Court ring. Thank you, Justice Ben. The next token is the Statuette of Judicial Excellence. The Statuette of Judicial Excellence is awarded to retiring members of the court. It depicts Justitia, the Roman goddess of justice, the blindfolded lady carrying scales of balance with one hand and gripping a sheathed sword with the other. The statuette embodies justice, impartiality, and authority. The scales represent objectivity, the need for a magistrate to rule on a case on its own merits, weighing evidence fairly and affording parties the right to be heard. Justice is dispensed with utmost fairness, insulated from the unscrupulous posturing. The blindfold embodies impartiality. It signifies justice without regard to status or power. The sword represents judicial authority, authority not by brute force, but by the wisdom, fairness, and soundness of adjudication. The chief decided cases based on legal scruples and the circumstances behind the case and chose not to be swayed by the tide of public opinion. I have no words for the next presenter except to say that he is obviously the favorite of the honoree. It is with great honor that I present the Statuette of Judicial Excellence to our esteemed honoree. The next token is the judicial robe. The majesty of a magistrate is made more pronounced by the judicial robe that is donned whenever performing official functions. Elegant in its unblemished simplicity, it is the regalia uniformly worn by magistrates. It is black, signifying consistency, neutrality, respect for civic authority, and constitutional fealty. The purple trimmings on its gala version represent sovereignty, honor, and dignity. The robe embodies judicial independence. It is a shroud, symbolizing imperviousness from external influence. It represents neutrality and freedom from prejudice, and also typifies the esteem proper to the judiciary. Those who wear it do so mindfully of their role in our republic as guardians of justice and the rule of law. The simplicity of the robe signifies humility, which Chief Justice Bersamin easily exudes without effort. To present the judicial robe to our honoree is a justice whose humble demeanor belies the forthright work ethic that define her chambers. She is a born leader, patient as she listens, but wise when she speaks. She takes time to coach the newer members of this court. With her pen, she wrote for the court the first Bellica versus Executive Secretary case outlawing the pork barrel, protected the law criminalizing violence against women and children in Garcia versus Drilon, abandoned the notorious condonation doctrine in Carpio Morales versus Court of Appeals, and set the parameters for local government curfews in a unanimous court in Spark versus Quezon City. A dancer, a golfer, a devoted mother and spouse, a legal luminary in her own right, I call on the hardworking, the Honorable Madam Justice Estela M. Perlas Bernabe. The next token is the gavel. The gavel is a symbol of authority. It is a means to call attention and to instill order in courts of law. As a ceremonial mallet, it is usually struck to signal the commencement and closing of court proceedings. Hence, with every sound of its strike, one is reminded of his or her humble journey, the journey of becoming an honorable justice whose leadership, commitment, and dedication are worthy of emulation and admiration. The ceremonial mallet is awarded to commemorate Chief Justice Bersamin's unquestionable leadership. To present the gavel, I call on my colleague, my elder, and also a leader by his own right, whose expertise in criminal law and procedure and many other subjects remain unrivaled and unparalleled. He is a passionate leader, absorbed by his desire for efficiency and transparency in all levels of courts. He draws successfully from his experience to inspire judges as well as his colleagues. He led the court in Republic versus Manalo, People versus Tulagan, Nakar versus Gallery Frames, People versus Lim, and many others that I am sure will contain the canons of the future. May I now call on His Honor, Mr. Justice Diosdado M. Peralta to present the gavel. To read and present the plaque of recognition, again, may I call on His Honor, Justice Diosdado M. Peralta, but may I just say a little more, few things about him. Like our honoree, Justice Peralta hails from the north, having been born in Lawag City, Ilocos Norte. Justice Peralta is the 162nd Associate Justice of the Supreme Court and is currently the chair of the 3rd Division and the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. Honorable Justice Peralta, kindly do us the honor of reading and presenting the plaque of recognition to our honoree.
Before I present the flag of recognition, I would like to read the text of the recognition. For his extraordinary brilliance in the legal profession, which he demonstrated throughout his legal career, from early as his outstanding performance in the 1973 bar examinations, having placed 9th in his batch, to the culmination of his term as Chief Justice of the Philippines, for his hard work and excellence in the pursuit of his passion for the law, values that were to be the foundation of his luminous career, both in private practice and in public service, for his dedication to his duty, which guided him as he conscientiously made his mark, not only in the judiciary, but the entire Philippine government. For his service to the judiciary, first as a judge of the Regional Trial Court in Quezon City, then as Associate Justice of the Court of Appeals, next as the 163rd Supreme Court Associate Justice in 2009, and finally his appointment as the 25th Chief Justice of the Philippines, throughout all of which he consistently demonstrated enthusiasm and initiative in the continuing efforts of the judiciary to improve the legal system, for his service to the nation for 33 years, during which he demonstrated the quality of public service that through his charismatic demeanor and unquestionable competence earned him the trust and respect not only of his fellow magistrates, but also those who interacted with him professionally, for his humility and modesty, in spite of his invaluable track record and numerous professional achievements, consistently conducting himself in a manner bereft of pretenses, for his generosity and compassion towards the members of his staff, the Supreme Court, the whole judiciary, and those who have had the privilege of working with him, all of whom can personally vouch for his compassionate, sensible, and benevolent character, for his high spirits, notwithstanding his relentless schedule and the numerous demands of his duties as chief magistrate, with him being able to lighten up an otherwise dire situation with his characteristic humor and wit, for his love for the law that is equaled only by his love for his family, his wife, Aurora, their children, Pia, Cristina, Luis Isidro, Lucas Rel Jr., and Carissa Dominic, their children and their grandchildren. We pay tribute to our colleague, friend, and leader, Chief Justice Lucas P. Bersamin, as he bids the Supreme Court farewell and wish him well in all his future undertakings. Given in the city of Manila on the 11th of October 2019, signed by all the justices of the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Manong Dado. Now we go to the Chief Justice Jose Abad Santos Award. The life of former Chief Justice Jose Abad Santos is depicted in the eponymous trophy to be awarded to our honoree. Chief Justice Abad Santos, hailed as the counselor of the nation, is remembered for serving the country with utmost dedication, honor, and patriotism. The award stands for the leadership, patriotism, and valor exuded by Chief Justice Abad Santos. It seeks to constantly inspire magistrates and leaders to uphold the rule of law, promote the welfare of the country, and protect public interest. This modern composition is meant to symbolize ultimate sacrifice or martyrdom. Certainly, 33 years in the judiciary for our honoree. It is worth mentioning that this award will be his second, having received the same award in 2002 as Outstanding Regional Trial Court Judge. No doubt, the Chief Justice deserves such recognition due to the excellence he has exhibited as a magistrate. The next presenter is a constitutional law expert par excellence, champion of national sovereignty, paragon of judicial excellence, and strict adherence to the rule of law, a justice. During many times that the court's office of the Chief Justice became vacant, he lent his leadership, which provided the stability and wisdom during these very trying times. Many times, I confess, I overheard the last two Chief Justices, Chief Justice Tess and even Chief Justice Luke, also refer to him in audible whisper as Chief. May I call on my former professor, now colleague, the Senior Associate Justice, Mr. Justice Antonio T. Carpio, to present the Chief Justice Jose Abad Santos Award. Thank you, Justice Tony, and to my other colleagues for presenting the tokens to our very distinguished Chief Justice. Now we move to the unveiling of the portrait. The portrait of the magistrate, while donning the judicial robe, is a fitting memento of his membership in this institution. It speaks of the magistrate's place in the history of the court as among those who were given the honor and duty to be the guardian of the last bulwark of democracy. Our honoree took his place as the 163rd Associate Justice on April 2, 2019, and on November 28, 2018 as the 25th Chief Justice. Since his appointment to this court, he has ably and faithfully discharged his duties during his term. I call on the person without whom Lucas Bersamin will not be Lucas Bersamin. I call on Mrs. Rory Bersamin, Judge Pia Bersamin Embuscado, Engineer Luis Bersamin, Dr. Lucas Kiel Bersamin, Judge Nino Embuscado, Dr. Carissa Bersamin, Veronica Bersamin, Krista Bersamin, and of course the grandchildren, Mateo, Laura, Othello, Seth, Sidong, Sian, and Samito. It is a very big family. To kindly join our honoree, Chief Justice Bersamin. At your signal, Your Honor, kindly unveil the portrait. Please smile for Facebook. You're closing. Your response. We now go to a most important part of this ceremony. There are titles which require very long introductions, but there are the few where the title itself speaks for what one has achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, mentors and colleagues in the profession, and all fellow seekers of justice, to give his message, the Chief Justice of the Republic of the Philippines, the Honorable Justice Lucas P. Bersamin.
Thank you. Saan dito? Nasaan? Wala. Okay. Okay. Before I proceed, that portrait will hang in the gallery of the Chief Justices. Do I look like him? I never saw that picture until before today. Chief Justice Hilario David Jr., Chief Justice Teresita de Castro, Vice President Binay, he was here earlier, Secretary of Justice Menardo Guevara, thank you for your presence despite your coming cabinet meeting. Court Administrator Midas Marquez, where are you? Oh, you're up there. Ombudsman Samuel Martires. Ombudsman Samuel Martires. The Acting Presiding Justice of the Court of Appeals, Justice Remedios Salazar Fernando. Sandigan Bayan Presiding Justice, Amparo Kabutahe Tang. Former Chief Justice of Guam, my good friend Robert Torres. Mr. Ethan Giri, of the Asia Foundation, our development partner. Thank you for coming. The justices of the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Tax Appeals, incumbent and retired. Other court officials and employees, my classmates from elementary, high school, pre-law, and of course, my ever loyal classmates from law school. You are present here. All other guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Let me make it clear, first of all, that these retirement rights are not happening today, a week before my mandatory retirement, because I have opted for early retirement. I have to make that clear. I will still be the Chief Justice tomorrow until October 17. Rory and I just thought of doing these rights today to give more time for me to bid goodbye to all the people who work in the Supreme Court. I owe this to them. and to the rest of the judiciary who might want to come and see me before I bow out of service. They could not be with us this evening, one whole week. Starting next Monday, I will be around for them. I thank my colleague, Justice Marvic Leonen, with whom I differed a lot. Did we fight? For having willingly accepted my request to him to MC these proceedings. It's easy to convince him. I told him that this would give him maximum exposure, even if he was not a politician. I now tell him in public that I have always thought of giving him this responsibility. Because we both come from the Cordillera, as he said, this is a region where the folk value very much each other's important milestones and dates. Thank you, my younger brother from the Cordillera. But today I will not talk anymore about what I believe were my several accomplishments during my nearly 11 months as the Chief Justice of the country. I am sure you are all aware, or at least must have heard by now, of the 4-point agenda that I announced when I assumed this office. Justice Marvic also gave you a while ago a clear idea of what have been done. I announced discussion of such agenda will also strain your concentration. There is a sumptuous dinner ahead of us. I really wish to leave to the judgment of history the things and projects I might have accomplished in the past 11 months and determine the true legacy of the Bersamin Court. I had an ambush interview yesterday, and one of the queries was about what I would like my tenure as Chief Justice to be remembered for. Without hesitation, I told the reporter, and this was on the occasion of that visit to the Memorabilia Hall, which I launched, by certain students from the schools outside of Manila. Without hesitation, I replied that I wish to be remembered and known as the healing Chief Justice, who brought stability and normalcy back to the judiciary and particularly to the Supreme Court. Yes, the judiciary needed healing, and it became my responsibility as Chief Justice to initiate and ensure such healing. This opportunity to speak at my retirement rites would not be complete without me mentioning and thanking the many people who have supported and worked alongside me in the nearly 33 years of service in the judiciary. Many of them have not come here this afternoon. Nonetheless, to all of you, my sincerest thank you. I would like to especially mention the roles played by some persons in helping me achieve my goals and objectives for the judiciary. There are my present and former co-workers in the judiciary from my days in the Regional Trial Court in Quezon City up to the present. I started in the judiciary as the presiding judge of Branch 96 in Quezon City, a position to which I was appointed by President Cory Aquino on November 5, 1986. At the time, I became the youngest RTC judge in the National Capital Judicial Region, but my older colleagues in the trial bench were all very genial towards me and readily accepted me as their equal. I worked well with all of them. On March 10, 2003, I joined the Court of Appeals. On April 3, 2009, I assumed my seat on the Supreme Court. On November 28, 2019, I took my oath as the 25th Chief Justice of the country. By October 17, 2019, my judicial career shall have spanned 32 years, 11 months, and 12 days. In all that time, I was supported by very competent, very loyal, and very efficient staff. I ask all of my support staff who are in attendance to rise, legal staff and administrative staff, wherever you are in this hall. There are a lot of them there. Kayo lang yata ang audience, ha? You made sure to come. To you, my legal and administrative staff in the RTC, the CA, and the Supreme Court, Rory and I express our lasting gratitude for your competence, loyalty, and efficiency. May we applaud them again. Thank you. I have literally thousands of relatives and friends who have supported me from my childhood until the present. Had our relationship and friendship rested on shaky foundations, I would not have held them responsible had they turned their backs on me and Rory. But they did not. Instead, they have remained steadfast and loyal despite my frequent faults and abuses. I start with the many relatives and friends from my childhood in Abra, where I spent my elementary and high school days. A few of them are here. There is Joey Leviste, who is my cousin. Joey, he is probably the more famous cousin. It is rightly said that one's childhood friends who remain your friends even in adulthood are your true soulmates. Yes, indeed, they have been my true soulmates. I then went to the UP and made more friends there. But I was not radicalized, even if that was the era of radicalization. I joined the Scintilla Juris fraternity, some of whose members, brothers and sisters alike, are with us today. Where are you, brothers? Thank you for coming. Kung hindi, napahiya ako. I also took my law studies in the University of the East, the best law school on CM Recto Avenue, formerly Azcárraga, in Manila then and now. I made more friends there, and some of them are also here. Where are you? Will you please rise to be? Commissioner Berhel de Dios, the first commissioner appointed by President Cory Aquino, is over there. She was our magna cum laude. Thank you. Tayo na lang bang 5? Well, I am 70 and you must also be of the same age. Good that we are still around. I made more friends there, and some of them are also here. In my ensuing practice of law, I made more friends. I won other friends when I joined the judiciary and the academe. For me to now name each and every one of my relatives and friends who have contributed to my successes and achievements will take the entire afternoon. I will not do that. Just know that without you, I would not have reached the pinnacle of my judicial career. Your attendance in the rites, however, and your coming to the dinner later on will be enough encouragement to me to hope that there is life after retirement. To each and every one of you, therefore, I say, salamat ng marami. I joined the Supreme Court on April 3, 2009, and took my oath as a member before Chief Justice Reynato C. Puno. Is he around? He's not. I had known CJ Puno many years before then because he often called upon me to do tasks associated with the judiciary. During my stint as an associate justice in the Puno Court, I gained a lot of learning and experience. He guided and enabled the court to navigate through many difficult issues and problems. The court respected his leadership because he was fair and even-handed in his dealings with the rest of us. But he deserved our respect because he was an intellectual as well as a humanitarian. My future course on the court was probably defined by the learning and the experience I got in my time with the Puno Court. For that, CJ Puno, thank you. I also especially thank CJ Puno for writing the foreword for the book, A Commitment to the People, The Judicial Pursuit of Chief Justice Lucas P. Bersamin. The book was written by Court Administrator Midas Marquez and Attorney Geraldine Rochelle G. Garcia of the Office of the Court Administrator and will be released next week for circulation. If you want to get a copy, it is free. Since assuming my seat on the court in April 2009, I have had the good fortune to serve alongside magistrates who were all of the highest caliber and dedication and who were patriots of the highest order. But permit me to make special mention of my mentor from law school yet, Justice Dante O. Tinga. Is he awake? Whose innovation in some aspects of the law never ceased to amaze me. We both came from the same excellent law school. I need also to especially honor the memory of the late Chief Justice Rene Corona for having been my CJ for 2 years until his inglorious impeachment. I had the best of times with two seatmates. The one to my right on the bank, Justice Arturo D. Brion, and the one to my left on the bank, Justice Robert Abad. Although they were fraternity brothers in the Order of Utopia, they always found issues to loudly disagree and argue about during the deliberations. And I could not but be involved because I was the person seated between them. They spoke loudly kasi may my predecessor as Chief Justice, C.J. Tess Leonardo de Castro, ever my idol, showed me how to be passionate about positions on legal issues without being disagreeable. You remember? I remember with mirth my days with Justice Ed Natura. Is he around? A person who never for once betrayed any hatred towards any legal position taken against his own. Of course, I express special thanks to my fellow ex-seminarian, Justice Jose Bambit Mendoza. Where is Bambit? Whose coolness, even in the most heated arguments, would always remind me on how best to deal with my own passion. How much I wished you had more time so that you could sit beside Marvic Leonen and convert him. It's hard to convince a man like Marvic. Then there were Justice Pepe Perez, the resident expert on law and custom in the Supreme Court. He was practically born here. And my authority on avoidance and filtering of cases on the court, Justice Francis H. Hardelesa. He bowed out of the service last month, and he is still smiling. My former colleagues on the RTC, Justice Mar del Castillo, Justice Noel J. Tiham, and Ombudsman Samuel Martires, also inspired me to do well in the difficult job of adjudication and administration. Now I go to my present colleagues on the court. Hindi ako gumaganti, ha? I am Chief Justice. On the court at this time are our more recently appointed members, Justice Jose C. Reyes Jr., he is presently out of the country, Justice Ramon Hernando, Justice Rory Carandang, Justice Ami Javier, Justice John Paul Inting, and Justice Rodil Salameda. May you quickly adapt to the rigors of dealing with court business in the Supreme Court on a daily basis. Thank you for your support and cooperation during my stint as Chief Justice. I thank Justice Alexander Gesmundo. Justice Alex, you have been like the younger brother to me in the times that we traveled abroad together on official business. I have profited from your insights and counsels. I especially commend your advocating my initiative on experiential legal education. Please be unwavering in your advocacy, even after my retirement. I have stopped saying anything anymore about your smoking. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I do not anymore care for your health. I still do, I really do. Please stay the course. I thank Justice Andres Reyes Jr. for his well-known generosity. Each time we have a misunderstanding, I can expect to see 2 boxes of chicken barbecue plus a cake. Kaya kung may diabetes ako later on, my wife should blame you. Justice Alfredo Benjamin Caguioa, I thank you also from the bottom of my heart for just being you. Just being you, Ben. I have always valued your opinions and positions, many of which I have adopted without hesitation, even if they initially conflicted with mine, just because you were right after all. I wish you to continue being strong and persistent in your opinions. I reiterate the manifestation of my gratitude to Justice Leonen for having agreed to assume the task of NCAing my retirement rights. I was aware that his being a fellow Cordilleran would easily convince him, and it did. I appreciate your acceptance, Brother Marvick. I have strong admiration for my colleague, Justice Estela Perlas Bernabe, since way back our days together in the Court of Appeals. On the court, she has contributed a lot to the discourse and has often explained to me why my arguments were wrong or misdirected. I have not complained, Justice Telly, because as usual, I was easily charmed by the way you explained things. Justice Diosdado Peralta, everybody knows he is my personal friend of long standing. We have had this valued friendship since 1994 when we were in the Regional Trial Court. This friendship has resulted in our becoming kindred spirits in law. We have shared the same passion for remedial law and have often discussed how best to reform the detestable slowness of court cases. I have often marveled at his espousal of court decongestion and small claims. I cannot explain how he could be in the provinces a lot of times. I was thinking of Justice Audrey. Ang hirap humingi ng paalam. I ask you, Justice Dado, to continue in that espousal. Justice Antonio T. Carpio has been a leader on the court. Although, Justice Tony, you are soon retiring like me, You have enough legacy to last the rest of your lifetime and beyond. I thank you for the valuable insights that you shared with us, not only during the deliberations, but also over the lunches and coffee. We may not have been on the same side of some issues, but you have never taken anything personal. You were the epitome of professionalism on the court. It is hard for me to imagine how the deliberations of the court will be like after your retirement. Wala na tayong dalawa. You have worked on the court for 18 years, and you have left an indelible mark about commitment and fealty to the rule of law. I wish you will have more success after retirement. Did I say enough about you? Now I go to my parents. My parents, Dr. Luis F. Bersamin Sr. and Dr. Rosario Puruganan Bersamin, brought me and my siblings up in an environment that did not dwell in hate. They taught us how to face the world on our own and overcome difficulties. We were all reared in the value of hard work as the key to success in life. We have therefore raised our respective families upon the anchor of such value. They have also nurtured us in the importance of fear of God and of humility in public and private life, which gave us siblings the automatic propensity to first look at ourselves, at our own faults and shortcomings, before we looked at others and judging them. They thus prevented us from being condescending of others and to be more understanding of our fellow men. When my oldest brother Chito and I were about to enter the political life of our province of Abra back in mid-1986, he, as the officer in charge of the office of mayor of our hometown in Bangued, Abra, and I, as the officer in charge of the office of vice governor of our province of Abra, our mother called me aside and counseled me to leave my personal aspiration for a political career and just concentrate on my law profession. She told me that my brother and I would somehow become political rivals in the end, and we should avoid that from happening. I dutifully obeyed and embarked on my alternative. I applied for a judicial position because of the ongoing reorganization of the judiciary under the Freedom Constitution. And despite my young age of 37, I got the posting in the Regional Trial Court in Quezon City. Had my mother not redirected my career future, I would not have gone on to become the 25th Chief Justice of the Philippines. But it was my wife, Rory, she's over there, walang iba, to whom I also owed much about my career direction in the judiciary. For all the 13 years that I had practiced law, my constant traveling in behalf of clients to many parts of the country had put my life and personal security at great risks. She did not want my frequent absences from home just when our children were still in their pre-teens. She egged me on to join the judiciary at about the same time that my mother asked me to forego my political aspirations. Looking back, I acknowledge the wisdom of Rory and my mother's initiatives, and my decision to shift my sights to the judiciary became later on fully validated. Still, in my quest for various judicial positions along the way, Rory was not only my partner and co-planner, she was also my constant inspiration. Wala akong kasalanan, ha? From the heart yan. She figuratively became the wind beneath my wings. Rory and I were blessed with accomplished and obedient children. Pia Cristina, over there, is now an RTC judge in Las Piñas. She is married to Nino, over there, now a judge in the Metropolitan Trial Court in Makati City. She gave us 3 grandchildren, Mateo, Laura, and Othello. Luis Isidro, a mechanical engineer, is married to Nikki, a chemist. They are over there. He gave us 4 grandchildren, Seth, Sid, Sean, and Sam. Oh, tama na yan. Lucas Riel, a physician specializing in surgery, married to Krista. He's over there. They are over there. They are expecting their firstborn in a few more months. And Carissa Dominic, a physician specializing in obstetrics and gynecology. She remains unmarried. We raised all our children in the same way we had been raised by our parents, with fear of God and love for others being the foundations. Muli, ako'y taus-pusong nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagdalo at sa inyong pagtulong sa akin sa kabuuan ng 33 years na ako'y nanilbihan sa hudikatura. I do not know if I have served the longest or I have served enough, but 70 is the end of it all. Thank you and good afternoon.
With your leave, Your Honors, may I now ask the Chief Justice to resume leadership of this court and request him to take his place on the high bench. I likewise yield the floor to the Chief Justice of the Republic.
Attorney Aricheta, are there still other matters before the court?
There are no other matters, Your Honor.
If that is the case, the court is now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.